Hello, hello. So good to see you all again. I was thinking, what are you leaving in 2023? But also, what are you taking into 2024 regarding your co-parenting relationship? Now, these are things that are within your control as a co-parent. And our mindset is, what can I do to be the best person, the best parent for my child? So I want you to think about that. I know the new year is coming up, and a lot of us we create New Year's resolutions, but also I want you to take the time to think about your co-parenting relationship and think about your child. So and as I'm talking, I want you to think about what is it that you're leaving into in 2023. So I'm going to give you some examples of what are some things that we should leave in 2023. You know, what can prevent us from moving forward into 2024? Because we have to remove in order to move, and movement is life. When we're not in motion, we're just standing still and we'll eventually move backwards. And this is where self awareness and self reflection needs to come into play. We must evaluate ourselves, and this is without judgment. So we want to evaluate ourselves in a way of curiosity. And this is something we have to do in order to successfully move forward. So until we know what clothes to pack in our luggage, we can't leave for vacation, right? Until you know what clothes it is to go in that luggage. So what's your baggage? Now, here's some examples of what we need or we can possibly need to leave in 2023. And let me know if some of these actually resonate with you. Shame, guilt, resentment, bitterness, jealousy, fear, failure. It can be the fear of failure or the fear of success, grief, complacency, control. That's a big one. Worry and regret. Those are some big ones. So let me know if some of those resonate with you. And I also want you to think about what can we replace these things for in 2024. Now, all of these things can hinder us from making or having a healthy relationship, co-parenting relationship. And it ultimately impacts our children. So it's crucial that we have personal standards and boundaries for our lives. It then carries over into every aspect of our lives. Our kids benefit when we have personal standards and boundaries. And it also ensures that we have a healthy and effective co parenting relationship. You know, the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. So let's think about personal standards and boundaries. You know, I had to look up these definitions because I want to know, okay, what is I knew I had in my mind what standards were, but I wanted to look it up just to see, you know, what is said about what does Webster say or whomever says about personal standards. And I found this definition. It says It is a personal code, metrics, measurements for how one acts, behaves, and lives across different areas of their life. Standards are reflected in how you act to yourself and to others. Now, I'm going to say that again. Standards are reflected in how you act to yourself and to others. You know, there's a scripture that says, "Do unto others as you would have them to do unto you." And when I hear that scripture, I think about, okay, well, if I don't know if I want others to do to me as they would do to themselves, because they might not like themselves. So if they don't like themselves, then they're going to treat me bad. But when you have personal standards, it's going to be reflected in how you treat yourself. And then it'll spill over onto others. So standards are also, they help us outline which behaviors are acceptable and which are not. They are also essential for having a strong self identity and for understanding our goals. So, what does having personal standards look like in a co parenting relationship? Because we should have personal standards, period. But we're talking about co parenting relationships. So, what does that look like in a co parenting relationship? So, it involves establishing and upholding certain principles, behaviors, and expectations for yourself and as a parent, as well as respecting the standards set for the other parent or set by the other parent. Now, the other parent, they might not even have any standards, but your standards, your personal standards, it is the respect of the other parent, regardless of if they have standards or not. And these personal standards, they contribute to us creating a positive and respectful co parenting dynamic. Now, remember the things that we are leaving in 2023 and the things we need to take into 2024 are things that are within our control. I want you to always think about that because I know I can hear some people in the back of my head saying, well, you don't know what he did. You don't know what she did. It don't matter. These are things that are within your control. Okay. So, what are boundaries? Boundaries are limits, rules, and guidelines that we set to define acceptable behavior, expectations, and personal space. I know when I think about boundaries, I think about personal space. And this happens in various relationships and situations. And boundaries, they help us establish a sense of personal identity, maintain emotional well being, and it fosters healthy interactions with others. And I want you to remember that boundaries are for us, not for anybody else. Boundaries are for us, not for anybody else. And one thing that I noticed when I was studying about personal standards and boundaries is the word identity that came up. And it helped me to understand that our personal standards and our boundaries, it really establishes who we are. It establishes our identity, the way people see us, the way we allow people to treat us. It is our identity. So, what does having boundaries look like in a co parent relationship? It involves setting clear limits, expectations, and guidelines to ensure a healthy and respectful dynamic between the co parents. And it helps, us define each other's roles, responsibilities, and the personal space while prioritizing the well-being of the child. So we're able to create those boundaries within our co-parenting relationship, especially when we're a newly co-parent, because I remember after being married for 15, 16 years and having to establish new boundaries. First, I had to establish boundaries within myself emotionally. And then I was able to exert those boundaries because I was used to being wife. I wasn't used to being ex-wife. I was used to looking out for my husband, doing things for him. So when you are in a new role, um, it will force you to set up new boundaries, but it's needed. And in turn, in so many ways, I had to create new standards for myself too, as it relates to to my co-parenting dynamic. And I'll give you some examples of personal standards as well as boundaries associated with those personal standards. So, as you know, or may not know, in the child first method, communication is our foundation. So, a personal standard example that we can have in a co parenting relationship is establishing a personal standard for open, honest, and respectful communication with other co-parent. And we can have a standard for respecting the co-parent's role and their decisions. And I know it's hard sometimes to accept certain decisions because it might not be something that you necessarily agree with. But the way that would look as far as effective communication and being respectful of the other co-parent or the co-parenting relationship is communicating clearly, promptly. We're not letting that linger, and that's something that I have to work on because sometimes, and I did this in my marriage, it took me forever sometimes to address things because I was always processing and I always wanted to make sure, which is, sometimes this could be a good thing, making sure that I'm saying what I need to say and I'm perceiving things the way they are. And I just tend to overthink. Then, of course, I know some people out there, they don't have problems addressing stuff right away. So I'm on the other extreme of addressing things right away. But it's so important to do that, to address things in a timely fashion. And and these are matters that are associated or related to the child. And we're avoiding hostile and confrontational language because it's only going to put up defenses for the other parent. So we're going to avoid negative comments and criticisms about the co-parent, especially in front of the child. And we're going to acknowledge and appreciate the other parent's contribution to the child's life. So that's an example of a personal standard for effective communication and respectful co-parenting. And the boundary that is set for that personal standard is we're actually going to communicate openly and clearly by initiating open and honest communication. We're going to clearly express our thoughts and feelings about the boundaries that we've liked to set. And we're going to use I statements to convey our needs and concerns. And these, of course, are going to be our wants and needs that's associated with our child. Because we can have other opinions about other things that might be going on in our ex's life, but that ain't none of our business if it doesn't have anything to do with our child. And I know sometimes we can think that everything has to do with our child, but it don't. But when we have these personal standards and boundaries, we'll know it's like a clear guideline for us to stay in our lane and to also keep our child at the forefront of our minds when we're addressing things. And in regards to respecting the co-parent's role, we're actually going to define, this is a boundary. We're going to define each parent's responsibility and expectations. We're not going to leave it up to anyone else. We're not going to leave it up to lawyers. We're not going to leave it up to family court. We're not going to leave it up to whomever, a judge. We're going to define what each parent's responsibilities are and the expectations, such as who's responsible for transportation. Yes, y'all not in the same house, but they might have a special event. They might have extracurricular activities. Um, they might have a doctor's appointment, but we're going to establish consistency in these parenting roles. And one thing I have found is that even though you're not married to your ex, you're still parenting. The child is still there. The child still needs their parents. So we still have to cooperate. We still have to work together for our child. And it's okay for parents to have responsibilities because they are the parent. It's okay for you to have expectations because you are the parent. And it's all for the betterment of our child. And what does that say to our child when they can see us getting along? They can see us being okay with um, each other as it relates to them, because it doesn't put them in the middle of um, anything. It helps them to be free to love both parents. Now remember, this is healthy parents. We're working to stay healthy. We're working to be healthy. And in order for us to have um, an emotionally healthy child, we have to be emotionally healthy. We have to know what that looks like because we want the best for our children. Now, this next standard, it might, um, it's different. Now, you know me, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you because I feel so strongly about family. I feel so strongly about our children because they're our legacy. They're the next generation. They are our life. We brought them into this world, and it's our responsibility to be good stewards for them or of them. So this next standard, that's an example, and they feel free to let me know what standards that you may have for your co-parenting relationship and the boundary that's associated with it. So this next standard is introducing new partners. So we're going to actually define a personal standard for that, for introducing new partners to the child. Now, I'm not saying that you have to get into your ex's business or you have to give business to your ex about your relationship. That is not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying that we're considering the child's emotions and well-being. Remember, we're not the we're not the only ones that experienced the breakup or the divorce. Our children did too. So we're going to consider our child's emotions and their well-being when we're introducing new partners. Because just think about it. I give my children for an example. All they knew was me and their dad their whole lives. And here they are 10 years old, 9 years old, their world is turned upside down. They don't have mom and daddy living in the same house with them. Yes, I dealt with my emotions. Their dad dealt with their emotions, but they're dealing with their emotions as well. And they are now living in separate households with with their parents. Their mom's here, their dad's here. And here's someone else that comes into the mix. How do you think that child feels, especially if they are not um, there's no type of communication with that child? And as the parent, the co-parent, I believe since you're working together for the best interest of your child, it's your responsibility to work with the other parent, because they're not going to always be in your house, even if it's just every other weekend. They're going to it's times that we need to be able to communicate what's going on emotionally, what's going on physically, whatever, mentally with our child. And in order for us to do that, we have to be informed. We have to be in tune with how our children are feeling. Now, the boundary for introducing new partners to our child is establishing rules. We're going to discuss and we're going to set boundaries and how we're going to do that. How are we going to introduce this new person to the child? Now, remember, you got to be healthy. You have to be healed from your relationship, because you're not going to be able to do this unless you are. You're not going to be able to have a conversation with your ex about who this person is that they want to introduce the child to. You're not going to be able to agree on appropriate timeline and how this information is to be communicated to the child. You're not going to be able to support. I know what y'all thinking. I know. Why would I support? We're talking about healthy. Healthy. And it's possible. It is possible. I truly believe it takes a village to raise our children. And one thing that I said when I was in this situation, I told the young lady when I met her that, you know, that I conveyed to my children that whomever comes into their life, because I trust my ex to bring someone in their life that's going to respect them, and that's going to care for them. So I mentioned to her that that was my expectation, that I believed that whomever would come into their lives would be someone in addition that would care for them. And it's just more people that will love them. Yes, it's not the perfect situation. It's not it's not the situation that I signed up for when I got married all those years ago, but this is where we are. This is where we are. And in order for us to make sure that our children are okay, we have to make sure that we communicate with them, because they know things. They already know what goes on. We cannot pull anything over their eyes, but they appreciate it so much more when we talk to them about things. So feel free to share your thoughts on that, because I know that's a different one from and you do really have to be healthy in order to be able to do that one. But I want to challenge you. I want that to be on your list um, to personal standards to do. And the last one I want to talk about, I really believe is really important, and that is emotional well-being. Because just like I said earlier, if If our co-parent relationship, if we're not healthy, our co-parent relationship is not going to be healthy. Our child can be as emotionally healthy as they can be. And our co-parent relationship is only going to be as healthy as we are. Can I say that again? Our co-parenting relationship is only going to be as healthy as we are. And remember, you can only control what you can control. So standard for well-being, emotional well-being, is actually prioritizing it. We're prioritizing our emotional well-being. We're prioritizing our mental health as a parent. We're taking on that responsibility to say, I'm going to be as emotionally healthy as possible for my child. So I'm going to seek support when I need it, whether it is through therapy, counseling, coaching, through my friends, family, or other resources. I'm going to recognize the impact of my personal well being on my co parent relationship and on my child. And the boundary that will be set in this area is going to reflect our own personal needs and limits. So we're going to take time to reflect on our needs, our emotions, and our limits. And we're going to consider what aspects of the parenting relationships of the parenting relationship is challenging, and where do you feel you need more clarity or space. And you're going to prioritize self-care. You're going to recognize the importance of it. And self-care is not just something that we do every once in a while. This is a daily thing. Whether it's daily meditating, daily exercising, daily taking a walk, daily reading, daily doing mindfulness. But we're going to establish boundaries that allow us to prioritize our well being, both physically and emotionally. And we're going to have to set that time aside every day. It can be relaxing. Sometimes I find watching TV is self care for me because I don't do it all the time. I don't watch a whole lot of TV, but it allows me to just turn my brain off. And I look at some ratchet shows sometimes because I'm entertained by them, and it's completely outside of my life. But I can escape, and I can also turn my brain off because my brain is always going, and so it really does. It is a sense of relaxation for me. But you can set aside time for your hobbies and for your personal growth, your personal development. That's all self care. And this is definitely one that I've had to really work on um, personally, and I'm still working on it. And I'm really growing in this area, especially this year. I'm kind of proud of myself because I've battled anxiety and depression for years. So me taking time to reflect regularly, it's really crucial for my mental health. I literally have to I have to have some space and time every morning where I'm just laying there, and I'm praying, I'm meditating, I'm just having quiet time. And it does something, it does wonders for me. So I do that in the morning and at night. And and then I've also found that I've had to distance myself in situations that I've been emotionally triggered. I think in this journey of co-parenting, post divorce, you can still be triggered by some things. And a lot of times you don't know how healed you are, how healthy you are in certain areas until certain things come up. But one thing I can say, when you are aware, when you're walking in awareness and you're taking that time to reflect on a regular basis, then you can be more in tune with your needs and your emotions. And you can move accordingly. I can't stress enough how important it is to do that. And one thing I want to mention too is just understand that boundaries they can adjust. You can make adjustments over time because not all boundaries um, gonna be for a lifetime. Um, but so just be open to reassessing and adapting them to certain circumstances as they change, assuring that they continue to support you towards a healthy co-parenting relationship and you being healthy as well. So ask yourself, does my standards, does my personal standards align with my boundaries? I want you to ask yourself that. Do you even have personal standards right now? And if you do, how do they align with your boundaries? But if you don't even have, if they don't align, it's okay. Because as co-parents and people, we should always be striving to be the best versions of ourselves. We have to take time to evaluate our co-parenting relationship moving into the new year. And if it's bad, it can be better. If it's good, it can be even better. It all depends on you taking that first step forward. We always want to move forward because remember, movement is life. Movement is life. Now, I got an action for you. This is what I want you to do. I want you to write down at least 3 personal standards for your life, just for your life. Doesn't have anything to do with co-parenting, but just 3 personal standards for your life. And I want you to write down 3 for your co-parenting relationship. Now, I gave you 3 examples. So you can have, I mean, you can take some of those, but you can also create some personal standards because all of us are different. All of us have different co-parenting relationships. So it's going to look completely different. And then I want you to ask yourself, what boundaries do I need to put in place that align with my standards? Now, I want you to take time to do this now. Set aside the time to do this. Because then I want you to write down those boundaries. And I want you to let me know what you discover when you're doing this lesson. I mean, doing this exercise. Because I would definitely love to hear from you. I would love to hear what came up for you in this exercise. So you're going to write down at least 3 personal standards for your life personally. Then you're going to write down 3 personal standards for your co-parenting relationship. Then you're going to ask yourself, what boundaries do I need to put in place that align with my standards? Then you're going to write down those boundaries. So I would love, love, love to hear from you. And I pray that this lesson, this episode has really helped you. I know it has helped me in preparing to bring it to you because it's something that I had been thinking about for a while, but I wanted to bring it to you so you can be thinking about it and carry it on. So I guess until next time, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Teach Me Tribe YouTube channel, and feel free to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And Also, if you feel like this is something that someone else needs to hear, feel free to share it with them as well. Um, I would love to hear that as well, that you were able to share it with someone else. So I guess um, until next time, I will see you next time on the next episode. I'm sorry. Um, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.